get some ASMR in here. With that, hello everybody. I'm back with an actual video that is not like heavy rain, though don't worry, you'll have more heavy rain content that nobody asked for not too long from now. I'm working on something for that. But in the meantime, I have finally done it. I have finally played Devil in Me, and I will make a short little video on it. I don't have extremely strong feelings on the Devil in Me, spoiler. It was good. I liked it, but not extremely strong feelings. However, I will probably do a little video on it. Sorry if my voice is a little wonky, it should hopefully clear up as we go on. But because I've played Devil in Me, I can now go ahead and do something I've been wanting to do for a while, which is this horrible Tiermaker. Look at this thing. I made this today. It has, I think, like 67 characters or something like that on it. I included all playable characters, all playable prologue characters, and any significant side characters that I could think of. I've probably still missed somebody, but I tried to cover everyone from Until Dawn, the Quarry, and the 4 DPA games. So if you've seen my Detroit Become Human video, you'll know that I like to make fun tier lists. So we have a bunch of different categories here. We have My Beloved, self-explanatory. One of the best, characters that I really like, but are not, my beloved blorbos, if you will. Vague positive feelings. I feel more positive about this character than not, but not very strongly positive. I don't think about you at all means I forget this character exists, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Meh means I do remember they exist, but I feel nothing for them. This is a category I felt like was really important for these games, which is I'd hate you in real life, but as a character, you're great. So this is a tier for all the characters that are insufferable people, but they're well-written characters. So I would hate them in real life, but as a character, they are interesting and cool. Real Thin Ice Buddy is for characters that are insufferable and not well-written characters. They are just annoying. So, spoiler, most of the Man and Medan characters are probably going to go here. And then Jail for Mother. Jail for Mother for 1,000 years for particular characters that are just extra egregiously bad. So, with all of that, this is my little Tiermaker. You can probably go find it if you want to. Please feel free to use it to make your own videos. Have fun. Before I do start, I want to go ahead and say that there will be spoilers in this. Probably not extremely detailed spoilers, but for some characters, their games just, they're spoilery. There's no way I can talk about these characters without spoilers. So please make sure that if you care about spoilers and you aren't already caught up with Until Dawn, the Quarry, and all 4 of the Dark Pictures Anthology, that you don't watch this. I won't be going into detail on plots probably, but it will be stuff important to the characters. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get started. We're going to start off with Abigail. Abigail, I have vague positive feelings for. I wanted to like her a lot, and I don't dislike her, but I also just don't feel very strongly about her. She's fine, I guess. I mean, yeah. She's a nice person. Not a particularly stupid character. She doesn't do anything particularly terrible. I just didn't feel very attached to her. Alex. Alex, whose name I had to look up when I was doing this because I didn't even remember his name so that I could do a search for him. Which means he goes in I Don't Think About You at All. I don't remember much about Alex, even being reminded that he exists. I remember him being okay, just kind of annoying. Like, he wasn't a terrible person. He wasn't the worst of the Man and Medan characters by any means. But he certainly didn't stick out to me, and I don't remember feeling anything positive about him. Okay, so getting to some of the Little Hope characters, y'all know Little Hope is a mess. So I did my best here and just picked the modern counterparts. I mean, they're all the same characters anyway, really, so who cares? I'm going to kind of consider them all as one character. So, Andrew. I liked Andrew well enough. He was probably the most likable character in Little Hope, but I just don't think much about him. He would go between vague positive feelings and I don't think about you at all. I'll go ahead and put him in vague positive feelings just because I mean, he doesn't bother me when I see or play the game. He's cool. He's fine. He's pretty much the only cool character here. Angela, on the other hand, she doesn't go in jail for Mother because she's not a terrible person, but she's poorly written and unpleasant for no reason. So I just cannot get over, as a grown adult woman, not Angela's age, but closer to Angela than, say, Ashley. I cannot get past her obsession and making fun of a teenage girl for her boyfriend. Any grown woman who does that deserves to go in the real thin ice buddy category. She's terrible. She's just not an awful person. Like, she doesn't murder anybody, so whatever, but she sucks. So speaking of Ashley, Ashley. I so bounce back and forth on my feelings for Ashley. And there are definitely a few categories that I could put her in that would be appropriate. I think I'm going to put her in I'd hate you in real life, but as a character, you're great. She is a fascinating character. I like her a lot. I like her depth and the character writing and how unpredictable she is. But I think I would find those traits very, very annoying, if not utterly disturbing in real life. And even if she didn't have that weird twist to her personality, just her standard personality, I don't think I would get along with too well. Not that she's like a terrible, terrible person when she's just, being like the cute, shy nerd, but the scaredy cat stuff would really get on my nerves pretty fast, I think. So I don't think I would get along with her in real life, but as a character, she is fantastic. Balathu. He's real close to going in jail for mother, because he kind of sucks. I'm putting him in real thin ice, buddy. For his time frame, there are some concessions you have to make. Things were different back then, but he kind of sucks. So whatever. He's going in real thin ice, buddy. He almost goes in I don't think about you at all, but real thin ice is appropriate. Beth, you get vague positive feelings. I feel like Beth is a character that we would really like if we got to know her more. We just don't get to see much of her at all. What we do see of her is good. I mean, she seems like a nice person and a capable person. She seems to not have any patience for stupid nonsense. So I feel like we would really like her, and I have vague positive feelings for what we do have of her. So vague positive feelings it is. Oh, Bobby. Bobby's a hard case because Bobby is not... It's going to be hard to hold Bobby fully culpable for his actions due to his mental state. And this is a very different case than with Josh. So just getting out ahead of that comment. So I'm going to put him in... I don't think about you at all because I kind of forgot about him until I was doing this list. Brad is going to go in meh because although I have vague positive feelings for him, I also forget he exists. When thinking about Man of Medan, especially when making my big comparison video, I had to keep mentioning him as an exemption to the I hate everyone in Man of Medan rule, along with Fliss, of course. But Fliss would come to mind easily, and Brad would always be an afterthought to the afterthought, if that makes any sense. So, although it's not fair to say I don't think about you at all, because I actually do remember his name, that sort of thing, I just don't feel very strongly about him. He's fine. There's nothing terrible about Brad. He's just kind of meh. Okay, Carver. Carver is a hard case here because he is a really good villain, even though he is so heinous that he belongs in jail for mother. I think that he belongs in this category because I think for jail for mother, I was just going to do anybody who is a terrible person and also not a good character. So I think he belongs in I'd hate you in real life, but as a character, you're great. He is a genuinely unsettling and intimidating villain, and he's a realistic villain, which is extra bad. And he's a very attractive villain, which is also a nice subversion in these sorts of games. You do have attractive villains, of course, in horror games and other games in general and media in general, but they are somewhat more unusual compared to unattractive villains. So to have somebody so horribly heinous also be incredibly good looking is a nice choice here, especially since it plays into his character's ability to manipulate those around him. Since he's a psychological and social manipulative villain and not like a hack and slash villain, this all works in his favor, and it just adds up to make him such a dangerous presence because he can go so under the radar or so carefully twisting things to his advantage. So he's terrible. He's an awful, awful person, but as a character, he's great. Charlie is insufferable. I have known so many people like Charlie in my life. Now, I've only played through Devil in Me once, and I've seen a few clips, so possibly there are routes where he is less insufferable, but I cannot stand this guy. He's terrible. He is on I think he goes in I'd hate you in real life, but as a character you're great, because I don't think he is poorly written. I just think he's obnoxious. So, as I said, I've known so many people like him in real life, especially in academia. So I think that disqualifies him from Real Thin Ice Buddy, because he is a well-written character. He's just awful. I've forgotten this guy's name again. Charlie? Yeah, it's also Charlie. Yeah. I remember now because I had to save one of them as Charlie, Man of Medan, and one as Charlie, Devil in Me. I don't think about you at all because I literally forgot he existed until I was looking at characters for this list. Chris, okay, let me just be clear here. Chris is my favorite character from any of these games. So, of course, he goes in my beloved. I know other people don't like Chris as much. Back in my day, when Until Dawn had just come out, Chris was one of the favorites, and now y'all hate him. I don't get it. I also, though, hated Chris at the very beginning of Until Dawn. He was so annoying, but he made a real hard turn once, the danger started being real, and I really, really enjoy that in characters. I really like seeing characters who are affected by what is happening around them, who change in personality depending on it without just becoming a whole different character. It's got to be a change that makes sense. And I think for Chris, his change makes perfect sense. It's more like another side of his personality that came out as opposed to just being a complete, disconnect or blind side, I guess. It made perfect sense that there would be this side of Chris that could, be decisive in a crisis and choose to protect his friends despite all the danger, that sort of thing. I thought it was a natural progression in his character. He seemed impacted by the situation, and I think that he would be a very interesting character to explore outside of the story after it. That's actually one of the things in general that I really like about the Until Dawn characters. They feel like they have natural progression and they are interesting after canon. A lot of these characters in the other games, I don't feel like they're affected by canon enough, or that there would be much to psychologically explore with them. And so that's a lot of my lack of interest in them. But Chris hits everything for me. Really interesting character development. And he's just a really nice person. So he's the first entry in the My Beloved category. All right, other Chris. Other Chris goes in Real Thin Ice Buddy. He almost goes in jail for mother. He is irresponsible, annoying, and dumb as a rock. So he goes in Real Thin Ice Buddy. The only reason he doesn't go in jail for mother is that I think that he is good intentioned. He obviously does not want anything bad to happen to these kids at the summer camp. He's obviously trying his best to deal with what has happened to him and what's going on with his family, but there are so many better choices he could have made. So he's on real thin ice. Clarice. I like Clarice. I don't know if I like her enough to put her in one of the best, but she at least goes in vague positive feelings. Clarice is funny and bitchy, and she is a fellow hot physicist, so, I just like her. And I wish she could have survived. My poor, poor Clarice. Conrad. I'm going to make people mad because I fucking hate Conrad. He is insufferable. He causes all of the problems that happen in Man of Medan just because he's a spoiled jerk. This was not the unforeseen consequences that happen to pretty much the characters of all other games. This is, I'm a douchebag and I had consequences for my douchebaggery that then snowballed. He's terrible, and I know people like him, but I don't know why. So if there are any Conrad stans in, watching this video and you haven't already clicked off, I would genuinely like to hear what you like about Conrad. I have not explored Man of Medan as thoroughly as some of the other games because of my general dislike for it, so it's entirely possible there is something really cool about Conrad that I don't know. But as it is, I hate this guy. So he's going in Real Thin Ice Buddy. I don't think he has enough interesting personality traits to put in I'd hate you as a real character, or I'd hate you in real life, but as a character you're great. However, I also don't think he's a bad enough person to go in jail for mother, because although he was being a spoiled douchebag, he didn't hurt anybody, so he doesn't go in jail for mother. So Real Thin Ice Buddy it is. Ah, we have our first entry into jail for Mother. What an appropriate character, too. This is Constance. She's the mother of the Hackett family in the Quarry. Despite being probably one of the best looking models, like, she looks so realistic. And her actress doing a fantastic job in her scenes. This character is one of the dumbest people I have ever seen in a Supermassive game. Literally every choice she makes zero sense, and I hate her. She's horrible. She's a horrible person. She puts people at risk for no reason. She tries to kill people that she doesn't need to try to kill, and she just sucks. Like, there's no redeeming qualities, and she's not even I hate you in real life, but as a character you're great, because her choices make no sense. I think she's poorly written. You could take her out of the plot and you would lose nothing. The only redeeming quality for her is that the model is really good and the actress did a standout job. But awful character and goes in jail for Mother. The curator. The curator has grown on me every single game. He is so weird and so smug, I guess. Smug is like too harsh of a word. But it's the right idea. And so, like, cagey and deceptive. I don't know, he's just really, really interesting. I think he's a really interesting character. I'm going to put him in one of the best because he is such a standout. Even though you don't play as him, you don't have a story with him. Well, you sort of do because it's kind of continuing. And The Devil in Me, actually, his scenes are particularly interesting, I think. So I really like the curator, and I'm really interested in where they're going with him. So he deserves to be in one of the best. Daniel? I think his name is Daniel. I don't think about him at all. I literally forget he exists. So, yeah. I mean, he's an okay character. He's fine, I guess. He just doesn't have very much personality either direction. He's not offensive, like, he's not offensively terrible, but he doesn't do anything great either. So I don't think About You at all is an appropriate place for him. Otherwise, he would just be in meh. But I do literally forget Daniel exists. I'll be like counting how many characters are in Little Hope, and I'm like, who is the fifth? I don't remember. Danny, I think. Another character I literally forgot existed until I was looking at a list for making this today. I know he's the third of the pirates, and he's like the chillest one of them, I think. I vaguely remember him now that I, saw his name and saw his face, but I don't think about him at all. Dar. I would hate Dar in real life, but as a character, he is fantastic. He feels like a real character. He's just a jerk. And I really like his character writing. And I really like that he also has some sympathetic sides to him. And like, if you get along with him as Salim, he can be a pretty nice guy. He has a wife, obviously. There's a lot to him despite him being a little side character. So as much as I don't think I would like him in real life, he is a great character. He's definitely one of my favorite of the minor antagonists. Dr. Hill, specifically Josh's hallucination Dr. Hill, because the real Dr. Hill probably has quite a different personality. I really don't have strong feelings on Dr. Hill. He's not really much of a character, as he is just kind of like a plot vehicle. I guess meh is probably a safe place for him. I think the actor did a great job. And I think that he has interesting segments. He has an interesting role in Until Dawn. But as a character, he doesn't have anything about him that I find particularly interesting or, negative or positive. Just nothing really either way. And that makes sense considering he's not really truly a character. So he goes in meh. All right, so Dumetz, right? See, I only played Devil in Me once. I know this character's actual real name. I remember that, but I won't say it. So, he just goes in jail for Mother. This is a weird character. I think that the attempt at his backstory is an extremely interesting potential. This is a very interesting place to create a killer from. And there are some really cool places you could go with it. However, I don't think that came across in the character itself, just in the lore. So, as it is, he's just a terrible person and goes in jail for Mother. Dylan. I really loved Dylan. He was funny and sweet and smart, and I really liked him a lot. So he goes in one of the best. What keeps him out of the My Beloved category is that he doesn't seem affected by what's happened around him. And that's the big difference in the Quarry versus Until Dawn for me. The Quarry kids kind of breeze through. They kind of seem separate, if that makes sense. They don't seem immersed in their world and their situation. And I know that that can be a very realistic thing. Some characters, some people do go through traumatic situations and they just kind of keep some distance. Compartmentalizing, I guess, maybe is an appropriate word. And they can just kind of skate through untouched almost. Or they can be affected but not show it, which could be a case with the Quarry characters. However, I didn't feel enough connection with these characters because I didn't feel their emotions as strongly. It felt more like acting than, real emotion. And that's not anything on the actors. The actors were just fine. It's just the writing and the choice of ways to have these characters react, I guess. It didn't hit me the same way that it does for Until Dawn. But I loved Dylan as a character. I thought he was fun. I thought he was funny, and I did care about him surviving. So he goes in one of the best. I have very positive feelings for Dylan. Eliza. I'm torn on Eliza. The actress did a phenomenal job. Great voice acting, great acting. I really felt her emotions in the later scenes with her. Once you start getting into the real plot of the Quarry and you start making the decisions that affect her, I really felt that acting, and I really liked that a lot. That said, her character does not make an extremely large amount of sense, and I don't really care too much about her. So, I feel like meh is the appropriate category because I don't have a strong enough feeling that I would hate her in real life, but as a character, she's great. And I don't feel she's a poorly written enough character to go in real thin ice, or that she is a bad person enough to go in jail for mother. So I think meh is just an appropriate category. I don't think about this character very much, so I could also put her in I don't think about you at all, but I do remember her. Some of her scenes do stick out to me, so I feel like meh is a fair category for her for me. As a side note, look at the curator and Dylan matching. Look at these matching poses. Look at this badass little squad. Oh man, we could have these two characters team up. Wouldn't that be cool? I don't know what they do, but I'm here for it. Okay, anyway, back to what we're doing. All right, Emily. Emily, I know immediately will go in I'd hate you in real life, but as a character, you're great. She is a really well-written character. She has a lot of facets to her personality, and they all fit together to make sense. She's just also incredibly annoying and incredibly mean for no reason. That said, because I am crumbling into dust as we speak, I kind of look at her and go, oh my god, she's a baby. So it's not like she can't grow up. Emily doesn't do anything so bad that she would go in jail for mother, certainly not. And she's much too well written to go in real thin ice buddy, but she's also just really mean and immature, so I can't really put her in a positive category. So I feel like I would hate her in real life, but as a character, she's very, very great, and she has a lot of potential to grow up. And as I said with Chris, the Until Dawn characters I feel are very interesting to explore after the effects of Until Dawn have settled in on them. I feel like she might make big changes in her life. So, interesting character with interesting potential. Emma. Emma is fine, I guess. I thought about making a category that was just fine, I guess, but then I realized it was the same as the meh category, which I guess I will put her in. She's okay. I liked parts of her personality, but she was kind of obnoxious, and I didn't feel engaged with her. I didn't feel like she did anything terrible, but I didn't feel like she did anything great. She was kind of a weaker Jess, I guess, where she was irreverent and, caused problems with her friends, but it didn't feel natural. It felt very forced. And again, not on the actress. Totally fine job. Everyone in the Quarry did a great job. Actually, everyone in all of these games pretty much does a great job, but it was just the character itself. Eric. Okay, Eric is a hard case for me. He's going to go in one of the best, I think, but he could go in my beloved because I really, really like Eric. I did not expect to like Eric when I started House of Ashes. I thought he would be a very, very annoying character, but There's just something about how pathetic he is. There's like meme about, wanting your men pathetic, and that's that's me with Eric. Um, he is he's really lame. He's like one of the smartest himbos you'd ever meet. But I mean, he could be a really annoying and really like unpleasant guy. And I have done a Everyone's a Jerk run in House of Ashes, and he can be so bad. But in general, the way most players play him, he's actually a pretty good character. There are a lot of layers to him. There's a lot of aspects to his personality. Again, the House of Ashes characters are very similar to the Until Dawn characters in that I feel like they are truly engaged with their setting. Their characters change depending on what happens to them, and I feel like they're really realistic as far as people go, and their personalities and their choices make sense. So with Eric, he's another character that I feel like the events of House of Ashes and the aftermath would make him a very interesting character to explore. So I really like Eric, and I really like his potential. So he goes in one of the best. I really was tempted to put him in my beloved, but I don't know. I mean, he could probably go there, but I'm keeping him in one of the best for now. Erin. I did not have Erin for an extremely long time in Devil in Me. But while I did have her, she was very sweet. I liked her a lot. Very nice girl. She goes in vague positive feelings. I wanted her to say so many mean things to Charlie, but she didn't. She and Jamie were extremely cute, and I feel very bad for her that she tried to do the rule of horror games and movies, which is not to split up, and nobody listened to her. Poor thing. So I have vague positive feelings for her. She might move up a category as I explore Devil in Me more, but right now I just have vague positive feelings for her. Fliss. Oh, Fliss. I generally like Fliss. However, it really pains me that she gets with Conrad, even when you've been like trying to make her not. I'm like, what is wrong with you, Fliss? Do you have no self-respect? What is going on? But that's a really minor thing. Fliss is fine. She is intelligent and hardworking, and she's got an interesting layer to her with, her secrets, and she's decisive and not an idiot. So she's fine. I'm going to put her in vague positive feelings because I do have more nice things to say about her than bad things, and I don't forget she exists. She is really the only Man of Medan character that I always remember exists, and whose name I always remember. So I think she goes in vague positive feelings, but she does kind of shift toward meh for me sometimes. Hannah. Hannah is between meh and real thin ice buddy for me because she has very little personality, and what personality she does have is not great. What personality we do know of her is that she's kind of shy and awkward, which is fine on its own, but also that she is obsessive over a boy who happens to also be the boyfriend of her friend, who she also doesn't care about cheating with. Like, it does not cross Hannah's mind that, oh, I should not cheat with the boyfriend of my friend. So really bad there. This is not a horribly egregious crime. And again, Hannah is a baby, so it's like she doesn't go in jail for mother or anything like that. She's fine. She'll grow up. Well, no, she won't. But she would have grown up, and she doesn't do anything terrible. But the most positive that I can feel about her is meh. And, okay, I don't think she's poorly written enough to go into real thin ice buddy, so I'm going to go ahead and put her in meh. I think that's my deciding factor there. Hannah feels like a normal, girl. She's not poorly written. She doesn't do anything extremely weird. I mean, she does things that are stupid, but there's certainly things that I could see happening when you're an emotional teenage girl. Sometimes you make stupid choices. And to be fair to Hannah, running out into the forest that she's been in all her life probably was not as stupid as it would seem to an outsider. She probably had no doubt she would find her way back, things like that. And if there had been no Wendigo, she probably would have been just fine. So not an extremely stupid decision, a little overdramatic, sure. She could have gone to her bedroom or something. She shouldn't have been trying to cheat with her friend's boyfriend. She wouldn't have been in this situation to begin with, etc., etc. But she's not a bad person. So, all right, Jacob. I forget Jacob's name a lot of the time, and I sometimes forget Jacob exists, but when I'm reminded of Jacob, I do know that he has a personality that kind of stood out to me. I mentioned it briefly in my comparison video, but I like that he's this big tough guy who's also allowed to just be kind of a softie, and you see him cry in the game, and he's in touch with his emotions. He's very immature, but he's a nice guy. He's just immature, and he's kind of an idiot. He's not a bad person. I think that I'd hate him in real life. It's possible he would be very sweet in real life and I would not hate him, but I feel like the other sides of his personality, the immaturity and the inability to listen when Emma says she's not interested, those sorts of things I think would really put me off of him in real life. But as a character, he is an interesting guy, and he's well written, and he's a neat archetype, not, a super common stereotype or super common archetype. I think he's an interesting character, so I think he belongs in this category. Jamie. Like I said, haven't played a ton of Devil in Me, but when I did play, Jamie was fantastic. She was one of my survivors. She was one of the smartest and most practical and with the most common sense of any of the characters. So I really like her. I feel like she deserves one of the best status. She's very interesting. There's a lot to her I'm quite sure that I haven't explored, and I'm really interested in actually seeing more about her. She's one of the reasons I would want to play Devil in Me more times. So I think she deserves to go in one of the best. I don't quite feel as strong about her as I do about, Eric or Dylan, and we haven't seen her as much as the curator when, she doesn't have the mysterious intrigue, but I think she's a really good character, and I feel stronger about her than I do for the vague positive feelings category. So I think she deserves a spot here in one of the best. All right, Jason. Jason is a character where at the beginning of the game, he would have gone in I hate you in real life, but as a character, you're great, because oh boy, does he start off the game as an insufferable person and kind of a bad person with some of his beliefs. But he is also a person who learns and changes his mind. So I really, really liked his character. I really liked his character arc. And I really like that they managed to write a character who does this flip of his beliefs so strongly, and yet it didn't feel like a change for the sake of plot. It felt like a change that was earned, and I really, really liked that. And the Jason that we get at the end of the game is a great guy. So he goes up in one of the best. He's very close to being put into My Beloved, but I don't feel quite as strongly about him as I do about Chris. I feel probably similar between Jason and Eric, but I do feel more strongly about Eric than Jason. So that kind of tells you my hierarchy here for getting into My Beloved. But I really, really do like Jason. I think he has an amazing plot. I think he has an amazing character arc, and he has some of the best relationships in House of Ashes. So Jason definitely belongs in one of the best characters in any of the Supermassive games. Jedediah. Jedediah goes in jail for murder for the exact same reasons as his wife. He's a freaking idiot. I cannot get over him starting a fight with a turning Laura, knowing that he can't kill her, but he just wants to hurt her, so he gets into a fight that can lead to his death. Fucking stupid. Dumb as an absolute rock. And a dick on top of it. So jail for mother is an appropriate place. I have nothing more to say about him except that Carl apparently fell on real hard times, and Lance Hendrickson is always amazing in his roles. Jeff. Yes, Jeff. I feel basically nothing about him. He's fine. He goes in meh. I definitely did not forget about him, but that's also because I played Devil in Me like 4 days ago or whatever, and I actually did sort of forget about him in the character list for Devil in Me. I was like, who's that? And then I was like, oh, the prologue character. But I had not forgotten about the prologue characters. So I guess, being fair there. He didn't make a strong impression on me, but he seemed like a perfectly fine character. He's just meh, whatever. Jessica. I think Jessica is going to go up into My Beloved. She didn't belong here in the early days of my fandom in Until Dawn, but she has grown on me so much over time, and I really, really like her, and I really like her potential, and I think she's just a great character all around. Again, I won't go too deeply into the same thing I said earlier, but I think she's an interesting character in the events post-canon that you could really explore. I think that her character change is extremely drastic, but makes sense. And I like that Jess is only in the game a little bit, but we see so much of her personality, and we have a truly we have a truly organic feeling for the change she's made between the prologue and the game itself. I feel like she's a person who grew up from her prologue actions. She's still immature, of course, in Until Dawn, but again, she's 18, so you really can't hold that much against her. She's very, very young. And I think that she's interesting, and I really, really like her. And I think she's a great character to explore the personality and the thoughts of. I think his name is Joe. I only put him on here for completeness. I have no strong feelings, and I completely forgot about him. Not as much as, what's his name? Charlie. I at least remembered who Joe was when I saw the prologue, and I was like, oh yeah. But he makes no strong impression on me at all. I don't even remember whether it was him or Charlie that was the one fighting about the coin at the beginning. But I really don't care. Okay, Joey. Joey is sweet. I have vague positive feelings for him. I like him. I think he has a strong personality as far as being well written. And he's a character that, if he had lived, I think would have been really interesting in the game. So he goes in vague positive feelings, but I don't have much stronger opinion on him. John. Oh man, I don't know what to do with John. I feel like he deserves I'd Hate You in Real Life, but as a character you're great. But he's also not quite well written enough for that category, I feel like. I feel like he kind of just goes either on Real Thin Ice Buddy or meh. I'm gonna put him in Real Thin Ice Buddy because he's really annoying, and I think I would dislike him in real life a lot. Too much to put him in meh, which is characters I'm pretty neutral on. But I don't think he's well written enough to actually go in this category as a great character. He's kind of inconsistent. He doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He's kind of just annoying and self-important and not that bright. That said, the way that he runs every time there's any danger is one of the funniest parts of Little Hope. Like him just completely bailing on Andrew like several times. Like there's one time he like jumps over the edge of a bridge or something. It's so good. One of the funniest things about Little Hope. So, at least there's that. Josh. I'm going to make people mad with Josh because I really cannot stand Josh. And I cannot stand Josh early in the game. One of the things that I think about is that the characters, including Chris, didn't really notice anything off with Josh. Like, obviously, he was probably acting a little bit unusual, and they were giving him some leeway due to, the grief and all of that. But there's nothing to indicate from any of these characters that the way Josh was behaving in the early game was extremely out of character for him. And early game Josh was a douchebag. He's unpleasant. He has no boundaries. He makes inappropriate comments towards and about the girls, and he's kind of a jerk to Chris. Like, I don't like him. He's terrible. And then when you factor in the rest of everything that happens and the fact that mental illness does not make you plan and set up for months to torture your friends, it's really not an excuse. So Josh sucks. That said, Josh is an extremely well-written character. And that's the reason I think a lot of people like him. He has some sympathetic sides to him. He's very complex. He's very interesting. There's a lot to work with Josh as far as like exploring his personality and his psychological state and how he would be affected by the events of the game. So like the other Until Dawn characters, he is a very well-written character. So he's going to go in I'd Hate You in Real Life, but as a character you're great, and I feel that very strongly. As much as I very much dislike Josh as a person, I really like him as a character. Ugh, Julia. Real thin ice. She doesn't go in jail for mother because she's not an egregiously terrible person. She's disrespectful, unpleasant, spoiled, self-entitled. Let's see, what are some other words I can think about for Julia? I don't really have any pleasant ones for her. I guess decisive is a pleasant word for her. Determined. She's not wishy-washy in any way. She makes a decision and she goes for it. These are all good traits of hers. But she's just such an unpleasant person that she's going on real thin ice. I don't think that her character was well written, in that I think that she was just a whole bunch of character traits thrown together, but they don't make a reasonable, person. I can't say I've ever met anyone like Julia. I'm sure that people like Julia probably exist, but she seems like a stereotype written for a horror game than she does a person. This is in sheer extreme contrast to Jess, who, serves the same archetype role, but whose character traits work together in harmony as opposed to just kind of being shoved together. So yeah, Julia's on real thin ice. Junior, I kind of forgot existed. I have a little bit of feelings for Junior because I think that his actor really sold his, his struggles with everything that happens in Man of Medan. And I think there's potential for his character, but I really don't think about him at all. So I think that he appropriately goes here. Caitlin. Caitlin is in the one of the best tier. Now, Caitlin has a lot of the same problems as Dylan and the rest of the Quarry cast, in that I feel like she breezed through the game without engaging with it so much. That said, Caitlin as a character, perfectly good. She reminds me a lot of Sam. She's kind of the best traits of Sam and Emily put together in one character. I liked her. I wanted the best for her. I think she's fun. I think she's interesting. And yeah, she belongs in one of the best. She is a good character all around. Kate. I started off really disliking Kate, and there are definitely things I dislike about her after finishing the game, but I think that Kate is a kind of a more mature character. I think that she's intelligent and capable, so as much as I dislike some of her traits, and I think that, she could stand to be a little less self-centered, for instance, she's generally an overall good character. So I think I'm going to put her into vague positive feelings. My opinion on her might go up or down depending on the more I see of the devil in me. But as it is right now, I like her. I just don't extremely like her. Kurum, I like better than Balathu, but that's a very low bar. I don't think about him that much. I think I'm going to put him in meh. He's fine. He's a perfectly fine character for what he is. He's a prologue character, so he serves that purpose. But I think he also had just enough writing to him that made him a little bit more sympathetic and a little bit more likable. So I think that meh is an appropriate place for him. Laura. So I have really mixed feelings on Laura. I like her, and I especially like her more toward the end of the Quarry, I guess, than at the beginning. In the prologue, she was a little bit annoying, but not like extremely annoying. She was fine. I think I'm going to put her in vague positive feelings. I like her, but I also dislike that she is so heavily written to the particular action girl role. I feel like she loses personality to that role, basically. She becomes a plot vehicle more than a character. And I really dislike the kind of like, I guess, forced flirtation with Ryan. It's so weird and awkward, and there's like no chemistry between them, and there's no reason why these characters would like each other. I really enjoy it when she tells him to shut the fuck up because he doesn't know what he's talking about, but I don't know why her opinion then just shifts. Like, she's annoying in that way. But I like the core idea of her character, and I like how she handles situations. I think there's a lot of potential with her, so I have vague positive feelings, but I don't feel very strongly about her. Marie, I think. Pretty sure her name is Marie. I don't know, I guess meh is fair. I really don't have much feeling on her either way. She's very, very similar to her husband. They're both pleasant enough characters, but nothing that stands out about them. Mark. I want to like Mark. He seems like a nice guy, but he also seems like an annoying guy. He seems like one of those guys who can't make any decisions for himself and also can't accept when other people make decisions regarding them. Like, it's so annoying. Just leave Kate alone, for God's sake. So, I think meh is fair for him. I might like him more the more I play Devil in Me if I see more of his personality that does not involve just being obnoxious toward Kate and kind of just like being useless in general. Also, what is with his fear of heights? Okay, this is the most inconsistent fear I have ever seen in a Supermassive game. Some of the strangest writing, like just talking about it makes me want to put him on real thin ice, buddy, because it makes zero sense. It'll just pop up in one scene and then be gone in another. He can be jumping over huge holes in the ground. He can be walking up like little tiny planks or whatever and have no fear of heights, but he can be on this nice, safe bridge with his friends that have just crossed it and he's suddenly terrified. I don't understand. It is the weirdest choice to have a character have this type of crippling fear and then just randomly forget about it. Okay, that's not really his fault, but it's really annoying. So he goes in meh. Matt. So Matt is a character that, again, I feel conflicting opinions about. There are a lot of things I like about Matt. He's a nice guy. He He's a nice guy. That's about it. And even then, he, I guess, is not that nice. Like, people like to forget about the awful things he can do, like berating Emily about potentially cheating when her life is on the line, and abandoning Jessica in the mines if she's alive. Like, these are awful, awful things that he can do. And yet everyone's just like, oh, Matt, he's shaped like a friend. It's those little parts to Matt make him much more interesting, but also make him a much less pleasant person. So I really don't know what to do with him. I don't feel like those aspects of him would come out enough that I would hate him in real life. I think that on the surface, I would like Matt just fine, because those weird traits of his are only coming out in these extreme situations. And yes, he has jealousy and he's overreactive toward Mike, but again, he's 18. 18-year-old boys are not known for their emotional regulation. So not a huge strike against him. I don't know. I'm going to put him in vague positive feelings anyway. Just because like 98% of the time, Matt is a nice dude. But I feel like there would be a real chance to put him into I hate you in real life, but as a character you're great, if those ruthless and selfish sides of him came out more often, or were more, overt the way they were with Ashley. So yeah, I think he goes in vague positive feelings because his general niceness does outweigh all of those other traits. So Max really grew on me. I didn't dislike Max at the beginning, but he was just kind of an average, boring character to me. But as the game went on, I actually really like Max. He's kind of laid back and chill, and I like that he just kind of deals with stuff and just moves on. He's doing his best out here. So I feel like he goes in vague positive feelings with Laura. Look, they match almost. They're pretty cute. I like him. I think he'd be an interesting character to explore after the game. So I also really enjoyed having a surprise 9th playable character. That was pretty cool. So yeah, he deserves vague positive feelings. Okay, Megan/Mary. We actually see a lot more of her personality as Mary, I guess, but then again, we don't even know if that's really the right personality. Blah, 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 blah. This is barely a character, sadly. But what we do know of her as Megan is really sad. This poor kid was just kind of failed by everybody around her, and I feel bad for her. But she's not well written enough to go into any real positive category. She's not a bad enough person, despite, setting the house on fire. Obviously, she was having some sort of serious problem. There are big implications as to what it is that was wrong, which I won't go into because it's YouTube. But she needed help, and unlike Josh, she is like 8, and she made an impulsive decision. So I have a lot more sympathy for her, but she also is barely a character. So I think she should go in meh. I don't think she counts as a bad person. I don't think that I would hate her in real life, but I also don't have any positive feelings for her. So meh seems like the right place for her. Merwin absolutely goes in I'd hate you in real life, but as a character you're great. He's hilarious and entertaining, and you get to see multiple sides to his personality. So he makes for a very, very interesting character, but he's also really a terrible, terrible dude. It seems like he's all talk and no action for the most part. So at least there's that. But I mean, that's a really low bar. So he could be a much worse person is what I'm saying. He doesn't belong in jail for mother just because he makes lewd comments. But that doesn't mean that the lewd comments are okay, even in the military in 2003. So I'd hate him in real life. He'd be insufferable. But as a character, he's great and he's very entertaining. Mike is a character that bobbles between vague positive feelings and I'd hate you in real life, but as a character, you're great. And I feel like he really does belong here. I feel like I have known people that are Mike, or at least the outside version of Mike that we see before everything goes down. And I feel like I would not get along with Mike. I would really, really dislike that he uses his combination of intelligence and charm to his advantage in a manipulative way. There are ways to use these things to your advantage in a way that is not, inherently negative, but Mike clearly uses them to get his way. So these are things I don't like about him, and I think that they would be overtly obvious enough that, as not a teenager myself, I would not be impressed. And he would remind me of all of the other people of this same archetype that I've known and disliked. That said, when things go bad, you get to see the other side of Mike's personality, and it's a good side. And Mike is a really good character. He's very interesting and he's very well written, so I think he belongs in this category for me. Morello, I'm putting in meh. Dude does have some personality, which is part of the reason I put him on here. He is so stressed out for good reason and so anxious for good reason. And I think that he's a character who has interesting potential to explore his personality and his psychological state with everything going on in the game and his position in the game. But I'm just kind of meh on him right now. Maybe as I see more, I will change my mind. Nick. So Nick, I'm going to put in vague positive feelings because I don't have extremely strong feelings about Nick in general. He's fine. There are things I dislike about him, like the fact that he's very self-righteous about, cheating with a married woman, and he's hot-tempered and just kind of wishy-washy. It's just a bunch of little tiny things. But he's also a loyal friend, and he is brave, and he is apparently a kind person who, has a strong sense of guilt when he does things that he knows are really wrong. So, good traits. Nick is a good character, and I think he's well written, so he belongs in vague positive feelings. The other Nick, he goes in I don't think about you at all because I literally forget about him. I didn't really like him in the Quarry. He was just kind of bland. He was just there. He was not bland in a cute way. He was just bland in a bland way. And then I just straight up forgot about him after he turned into a werewolf. And when I'm thinking about characters from this game, I only remember him because I forget him. So I always know, oh yeah, there's that character that I forget who shares a name with somebody from House of Ashes. So that's how I remember Nick, and that tells you everything you need to know about my opinion on him. Olsen, I also forgot existed, aside from the fact that I knew that there was a lead pirate, so I don't think about you at all. He'd go into real thin ice buddy or jail for mother if I remembered more about his character. I feel like he's really unpleasant for the sake of being unpleasant, and so he probably deserves to go in one of the lower categories. But the fact that I don't even remember really kind of tells you that he belongs in I don't think about you at all. Rachel, I didn't like very much the first playthrough, but I think the more that I played through and saw House of Ashes played through, the more I like her. So she goes in vague positive feelings. I think she's an interesting character, and I think she's well written. She's kind of subtly well written. There's a lot to her. She's kind of unpleasantly bitchy for what seems like no reason, but at least they try to justify it in game with her conversations with Clarice about why she acts like the way she does. And I think she is grown up enough to tone that shit down and know better, but also I understand it. So I have vague positive feelings toward her and who she can be, and I kind of like her epilogue. Her epilogue credit scene is interesting. It says a lot about her as a person, and there's a lot to work with her. So I think that she goes in vague positive feelings. I might not like her in real life, but I might get along with her just fine. So I'm not going to go ahead and put her in I hate her in real life. But that was the only other category that I would consider for her. Of course, cheating on your husband is not good. Obligatory disclaimer there. But again, it's not an egregiously terrible thing. She didn't kill anyone, so whatever. Big positive feelings is where she's at. Ryan is a character that is kind of the opposite of a lot of these characters, where I liked him at the beginning, and then my opinion of him just went slowly downhill. He started off with a lot of potential. He had the whole mysterious thing. He had the whole brooding thing. He had the kind of sassy, but also like a little bit flirty thing. Like his scene with Dylan in the camp office after Chris Hackett leaves, and they're just kind of exploring. I really liked him there. He was interesting and funny and playful and cool character. But by the end of the game, he was just annoying. He didn't seem to be learning or to be open to things, which was very strange. I understood his devotion to Chris and his loyalty, and that makes perfect sense. But I don't know, there was just something that didn't feel organic about the way his character dealt with the situations. It felt like he was being difficult for the sake of being difficult. And it also felt like the game was pushing you to like him without giving you reason to like him. So those are things that really bothered me about his character. But that said, I don't think he's a bad character. I think that in real life he would be a perfectly pleasant person, maybe even a really cool person. And I don't know. He has potential, I feel. I'm going to put him in meh, just because I can't decide on my opinions of him. I have a very negative opinion of him by the end of the game, but he started out really good. And so I also wonder if I'm just being unfair. So, I don't know. He goes in meh. Salim. It is the boy. The boy who belongs not here, but here. He belongs in my beloved because Salim is one of the greatest characters in all of Supermassive, I think. He doesn't outrank the Until Dawn kids, but he is the highest of the Quarry and the Dark Pictures Anthology and several of the Until Dawn kids. So he's up there for me. I really, really like Salim. I really liked having a mature, intelligent, just practical, just a normal guy. He was just a normal guy doing his best, and he doesn't do anything particularly stupid, but he's also not like a huge stick in the mud. He doesn't do anything completely reckless, but he's not cowardly. He just kind of does what needs to be done, but he also has an actual personality of his own. I think it's really helped that a lot of his scenes at the beginning, even though he's alone for so many of his early scenes, you hear him talking to himself and like making commentary, and it's very endearing, and it tells you a lot about who he is. And then he's so patient and willing to kind of extend a hand toward the other characters without being a wallflower or a pushover or compromising his morals. So he strikes a very, very good, mature balance there. And I really like him as a person and as a character. So Salim belongs in my beloved. Sam I really like. She's going to go in vague positive feeling. No, she's going to go in one of the best. Mostly because I had just forgotten that I had a one of the best category. Sam she's written to be likable. She's a very likable final girl archetype. She is like a lot of girls that I know in real life, and she's just a pleasant person to be around. She's smart and determined and brave and calm, practical. A lot of really good traits. I also have kind of a personal love for Sam because she was who inspired me to get into rock climbing when I was younger, and I took up rock climbing as a hobby, and it's been one of my favorite hobbies I've ever had. It's a really cool sport. If you ever get a chance to try it, I totally suggest it. But I've always had a soft spot for Sam for that. But she is a great character. There's a reason why most fans of Until Dawn at least like her, if not, feel strongly about her. The Stranger, I kind of feel meh, I guess, about him. I think meh is a good category. There's nothing wrong with the Stranger. He is more of a vehicle for plot than he is a character, but he is more character than, say, Dr. Hill. So I think there's some neat sides to him. I think that he could be a potentially interesting character to explore, and I think that we get hints of his personality with Chris, for instance, that is enough to kind of let you know who he is. So there are things I don't like about him, like, why didn't you do a better job finding the twins? My God, man. But those are minor, plot hole kind of things. He's a weirdo, but he has perfectly good reason to be a weirdo. He's a pretty good character as far as these sorts of plot explanatory characters go. Taylor. I might surprise some people here, but I actually like Taylor. I was a little surprised that people hate Taylor so much. I'm going to put her in vague positive feelings. Taylor was right. She was right about just about everything in Little Hope. So I don't know why people dislike her so much. Sure, she's a little bit annoying and she's a little bit needy, but she's also putting up with people being complete jerks to her for no reason at all. Like Angela and John, they have no reason to talk to her and act the way that they do toward her. She has every right to be a little defensive and a little aggressive, especially since she is correct. She's right. Wandering away from the bus is a stupid move. She has no reason to trust or want to be with these people who are showing that they're irresponsible and immature. So as much as Taylor has some annoying traits of her own, I feel, just kind of on her side from the very beginning and willing to forgive little obnoxious things that she does. She's not an extremely annoying character, and she doesn't do anything bad to anybody. So she goes in vague positive feelings, just because I don't feel much more strongly about her than that. All right, Travis. I want to like Travis, but he's a fucking idiot. So, I think I'd hate you in real life, but as a character, you're great. Even though I don't think he truly deserves to be here. I think he deserves to be on real thin ice. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt by the fact that he comes from a family of morons, and he's the least stupid of them. So he's already rising above what he came from. A lot of his decision-making makes no sense at all. But again, par for the course with his family. No one in his family makes any logical choices whatsoever. And Travis, at least you can kind of understand where he's coming from. He should have handled so many things so many different ways. And he does some things so badly that he really almost deserves to go into jail for mother. But I don't know. I think he's interesting enough and well written enough that it overwrites those problems with his character. I would absolutely hate him in real life, and I think he's a bad person. But as a character, he's great. Vince has a problem where I think that he could have really cool potential if he was used a little differently. And unfortunately, he's barely used at all. He's kind of used as a jump scare, which is kind of funny, but he could potentially be really interesting. You know, he lost his girlfriend in this tragic event. He's obviously never moved on from it because he's never moved on from the town. And as a teenager, he was really into like occult stuff. So that's a cool aspect to his character that was never touched on again as an adult. So Vince is some real wasted opportunity, I think. And I really don't know how to feel about him. I'm going to put him in meh, I guess, because I do think about him more than not at all. And I do have some opinions on him, but I don't really feel strongly good or bad about him. And Judge Wyman, I think, pretty sure. I really don't think about him at all. I kind of forgot about him. But when I was reminded of him, I do actually know enough about his character that I think he's interesting. I think he tried to be fair, like truly tried. And I think he truly had the best intentions. And he also was so not into everyone's bullshit. He was just getting really tired of all the stupid arguing, which I appreciated. But I don't know if that's enough to put him into like a positive category. So I feel like meh is probably fair for him. All right. So that is my actual finished chart, I guess. I'm sure that I probably have extremely different opinions than a lot of you, and that is perfectly fine. The coolest thing about Supermassive is the variety in their characters. Even characters that I forget about, you know, all of these characters are distinctive, and that is pretty amazing, because I think I have 67 characters on here. And the fact that you have 67 distinct characters with distinct personalities, that's pretty amazing. Even characters that I don't think about, like the prologue characters, like Charlie, for instance, or Joe, you know, you could still say that they had distinct personalities. They may not be extremely memorable, but these are all different characters. And really, there's a lot to be said for that. Supermassive's strength has always been, I think, in its characters. And it's when they forget the characters and focus too much on the mechanics that I think that the games suffer. I think The Devil in Me found a pretty good balance between the characters and the mechanics, which there were a lot more mechanics in The Devil in Me. And again, I will talk about this more in depth when I do my Devil in Me video. But I think as long as Supermassive really remembers their character writing and just how good at characters that they are, and that they let the plot flow from their characters as opposed to the other way around, the better the games will be. So thank you all for getting this far. I knew this was going to be a long video when my Detroit one was like an hour, and it definitely has less characters than this, but I felt more neutral on a lot of these characters, so it didn't end up being too much longer. But still, I really appreciate y'all listening and being here and putting up with my delays and my just kind of funny low effort content as I work on the more, you know, polished things like the essay I want to do about Ashley and some of my internet investigations, things like that. So in between the, you know, nice polished pieces, you'll be getting some fun stuff. So, you know, videos like this. I also have created an entire house in The Sims of Until Dawn characters, which I'm tempted to just like let do their own thing and not actually interfere with it all and just see what kind of horrifying chaos they get into. I thought that might be fun to both do and to watch. I have my Heavy Rain stuff that I'm doing, and I'll have a tier ranking video that'll be pretty short for Heavy Rain eventually. I've got a lot of Heavy Rain content that I'm just pulling out of the game. As I'm learning to mod Heavy Rain, the more I am learning that I might be able to do something with Supermassive games. I know that there is modding available for things like House of Ashes, the PC versions for the Dark Pictures Anthology. Until Dawn is a little bit different because it is PlayStation only, and modding on a console is a whole different disaster. I'm not ruling it out because I would absolutely love to do even something as simple as pulling all of the audio files, which is something that I did with Heavy Rain and will be one of my next uploads is, compiled audio for particular characters. But I would love to be able to do something like that for Until Dawn, even if something like a model swapper would probably not be possible. It might be possible in something like one of the Dark Pictures, though. So I might eventually start looking into those sorts of things. But yeah, going to be kind of varied content on my channel. I hope y'all who are around have a good time watching it, as chaotic as it is, or at least that there's some stuff in here that you can kind of pick and choose that you like. But anyway, yeah, I appreciate y'all listening and getting to the end of this video. Please feel free to argue about which characters are better and tell me why I'm wrong, as long as you're nice about it. And I really did mean it when I said I was interested in hearing why people like Conrad. Because, I get why people like Josh, but I never quite understood it for Conrad. So if you love Conrad, please tell me why. I legitimately want to listen. So that's it. I will see you all in the next video, I guess, whatever it happens to be. Thanks for watching.